Do you know how scary it is when a zombie starts to discipline itself? His name is Zhangxi, age unknown. He doesn't know when he became a zombie. He only remembers the first day of the zombie outbreak. Too late to escape, he became one of them. After that, he followed his own kind around. Until one day humans appeared with guys that glow blue. From then on, the zombie army was routed. Some of the zombies were enslaved by humans and turned into perpetual motion machines. Zhangxi doesn't understand why the zombies have to eat people, and he doesn't understand why humans have to kill all the zombies. But he knew if he wanted to live, he has to get stronger, and from that day onwards, Zhangxi began his life of self-discipline. Swimming around the earth every day. Lifting weights several million times a day continuously. Even the protein powder is eaten as food. Even exercising with the TV at night. That's it. Zhangxi became bald and strong at the same time. But despite this, he still wants to be friends with humans. To be able to realize this dream, he has rescued human children from fires. He even avoided a major disaster by catching a plane with his bare hands. In the face of a fast-moving train, he only needed just one punch to solve the problem. To get along better with humans, he gathered all the zombies into an abandoned city and asked them to feed on eggs every day. However, on this day, Zhangxi was buying eggs in the supermarket when he found out that his little brother had become a wanted man again. Meanwhile, two journalists are taking pictures. It turns out that they didn't believe that Zhangxi was capable of lifting a plane with his bare hands, but the next second they were stunned by the scene before them. They saw Zhangxi lifting trucks weighing tens of tons and jumping. In an instant, the truck broke through the atmosphere. After having traveled halfway around the world, Zhangxi finally arrived in his own territory. The crowd of zombies was thrilled to see the scene. But the two zombie children next to him asked, "Why don't you drive the truck over, my lord?" I don't actually have a driving license." Zhangxi answers the question awkwardly, and then he goes to the gathering place of the minions. By now, the various zombie elites inside were already waiting impatiently. As soon as Zhangxi opened the door, the boys rushed to stand in 2 rows. At this point, Zhangxi slapped the wanted notice on Dog and said, "Dog, what's going on? Why are you wanted by humans again?" Dog was in a cold sweat at his words and explained fearfully, "I can't control myself when it comes to humans." At this point, Blackie, who was next to him, also said, "Although our zombie territory is still expanding indefinitely, but we've changed capital several times to avoid the humans." Saw even suggested the idea of a war with humans. "It's been so long, my chainsaw is getting rusty." But just as Jiangxi was about to give them a lecture on the horrors of the human race, there was a sudden boom in the sky. It turned out that human fighters had come over them at some point, and the commander inside at that moment was a wonderfully handsome woman. The president of the fighter plane was looking at the data on the screen and pondering. 2 subordinates reported, "Everything is ready for action." The girl asked with a slight sideways glance, "Where's the goods?" It turned out that the warplane had a heavyweight nuclear bomb on board. "Come on, I'm going to level this place in 20 minutes. The zombies below have sensed the crisis." The light in Saw's eyes shone brightly. He shouted that he was going to fight them, but then Zhangxi stopped him. "No, you'll lose control when you get close to humans. It is better to evacuate the area with the citizens first. As for the humans, leave it to me." It didn't take long. Several armed trucks also slowly drove into the area. Their task was to search for survivors on the ground. And that's when the hatch of the fighter jet in the air suddenly opened, and there was a young man with white hair in full armor standing in the middle. He wasn't afraid of the hordes of zombies below. Instead, he threatened to kill all the zombies here. Meanwhile, in another place, a man in a white coat is staring at the screen in front of him. "Ming, that seems to be someone from the Academy for Abnormal Human Beings." The man heard this and said with a slight tilt of his mouth, "Then let's play with them." And with that, he pressed a red button. In the next second, an iron cage full of humans falls from the sky. It finally landed slowly in the middle of the zombie horde. At the same time, the search and rescue team also received a message from the human rescue team. They then slowly pressed on with firepower, but then a red-haired woman suddenly shouted, "Why can't that zombie be killed?" Looking in the direction she's pointing, there were 2 zombie children cuddled together shivering, and the one in front of them was Zhangxi. Suddenly, a yellow man raised his bazooka and took aim. With a swoosh, the rocket was fired towards Zhangxi at a very high speed. Just for a moment, he was surrounded by a violent explosion and fire. However, at that moment, someone reminded Yellow Hair that we seem to have bombed the wrong person. The man in the zombie mask seems to be an unnatural human being who has just recently come to prominence. The Yellow Hair who saw the scene was confused. "I can't believe I blew up the wrong person." But as the white smoke slowly cleared, Jiangxi was standing there intact. He rubbed his head in confusion. At this point, the president on the fighter suddenly spotted the zombie boss, so she instructed Xiao Wu to go to B to block it. As she gave the order, Xiao Wu then immediately left from the hundreds of meter-high fighter plane. Just a few minutes ago, as rescue teams began to evacuate survivors, the white-robed man in some room was about to start getting ready to make things happen again. Ming, I didn't think they'd pull the civilians out. It seems you can't underestimate them. Hearing this, the man smiled with a slight sideways glance. Well, let's give them something interesting. The green-haired man immediately understood. Then, under his control, one of the zombies in the herd suddenly underwent a horrific mutation. Just a little while later, he had already turned into a licking monster who had lost his mind. This change also attracted the attention of the zombies in the distance. But just at that moment, the yellow hair of the search and rescue team suddenly sprinted, while Jiangxi was still confused. He picked him up and ran towards his caravan. And as he ran, he shouted, "I saved your life." After that, he threw Jiangxi into the car and hurriedly urged the driver to run. That's it. The boss of the zombie was successfully rescued. On the road, the girl asked him why he was wearing a zombie mask all the time. Jiangxi felt embarrassed. I don't know how to answer. And at this point, the other side of the search and rescue team started to running into trouble. The mutated zombie lifted a bus and threw it violently towards them. But Xiao Wu appeared in time. He cut the bus in half with just one slash. The crowd cheered at the sight of this scene. Great! It's Xiao Wu from the Academy Sword Club. Now we're saved. Xiao Wu told them to take the civilians away first. He'll take care of the rest. At this point, the zombies suddenly burst out with a tearing roar. Xiao Wu seemed to feel as if he was in pain. Then, the moment the zombies pounced on him, Xiao Wu pulled the sword out of its scabbard. It's just a simple draw and chop. And the zombie's body was cracked and shattered into countless pieces with a bang. And yet, just when he thought he could call it a day early, suddenly a sound of footsteps interrupted his thoughts. Xiao Wu looked in the direction of the sound. Turned out that Jiangxi had come to the side of the zombie at some point. I'm sorry I'm late after all. Hearing this, Xiao Wu immediately put him in the zombie category and brought up his sword and slashed at Jiangxi. But the next second he was naked and hanging from a telephone pole. Meanwhile, the short-haired girl on the plane also noticed the anomaly. Oh no! Xiao Wu's vitals are dropping. The president who heard this was also stunned. Xiao Wu was defeated? Damn! The civilians haven't all been evacuated yet. There's no way to strike with a nuclear bomb. Then she was seen to move slightly. The next second she was already flashing down from the fighter plane. This man was stripped, naked and hung on a telephone pole. The first time he went into battle to round up walkers. Jiangxi was looking puzzled when there was another figure in the air that came in a hurry. It was their commander who came. She quickly drew her sword from her waist, and then she hit Jiangxi with a white blade slash. But the next second, the indestructible sword shattered. The president who saw this scene was in disbelief. And on the other hand, Jiangxi was just dumbfounded at the moment. At this point, the girl's eyes were slightly stunned. What the hell is this thing? Then he hurriedly jumped back and pulled away from him by several meters. Jiangxi looked at the girl who came out of nowhere. He was a little embarrassed. Then he rushed to explain. I already apologized earlier. The girl was shocked to hear the zombie speak. But a zombie is a zombie after all. The girl then immediately pulled out a second sword. Come on. Let's see what you're capable of. At this moment, Jiangxi is very depressed. Can't you humans just listen to what I have to say? As his words fell, the girl was already dashing towards him with a sword. But the blow didn't hit him. She didn't expect to miss with the speed she was so proud of. Immediately after a 360-degree rotation, she used her strongest move, the red blade slash. Just for a moment, those swept by the red light were cut in two. Not even the buildings on either side were spared. But even such a killing blow, Jiangxi dodged it with a simple bend. Damn! How dare you provoke me like that? I'm gonna kill you today. At the same time, the survivors around us are almost done evacuating. Even Xiao Wu, who had been knocked out by Jiangxi, got on the bus. Then the assistant on the fighter plane hastily called the president. Hurry back and evacuate. But she was in the middle of a fight with Jiangxi, and she didn't have time to think about that. And Jiangxi is also helpless at this moment. Why is this woman so troublesome? Turns out that the girl was going crazy, because she couldn't touch Jiangxi's clothes all this time. In just a few moments, they've crossed half the city. Seeing that she couldn't catch up with Jiangxi, the girl immediately activated her second form. A large amount of steam suddenly emerged from her lower legs, and when the charge was complete, she shot like a bullet. In an instant she was behind Jiangxi, and used her best move. In an instant they both landed at the same time. So guess what? Will Jiangxi be hurt by her move? Just now, this girl thought she'd taken care of the zombies. While in contact with the fighter plane, the mysterious forces on the other side are going to start doing things again. They have a spy on the girl's side. And just when everyone was cheering thinking they had been successfully saved, the spy on the fighters suddenly turned on the nuclear launcher, and then he pressed it without hesitation. As the click sounded, the next second, the heavy-duty nuclear bomb fell from the plane. The spy in the cabin was taken into custody by the other two pilots. But when they reported the news out, everyone had a look of fear, looking at the nuclear bomb that was plummeting. The girl started to panic. She then hurriedly opened the ejection mechanism and tried to jump back into the fighter. But the next second she was frozen in place. She had just used up all her energy fighting with Jiangxi. Just when the girl didn't know what to do at this point, Jiangxi suddenly came in front of her with a flash. Before she could react, Jiangxi grabbed her and spun her around on the ground. The next second, the girl was thrown into the sky, and finally landed precisely on top of her fighter. It took her a while to come back to her senses. Suddenly she was horrified to think that the zombie was still alive. By this time the nuclear bomb was less than 1,000 meters above the ground. However, Jiangxi was not going to escape. He lifted his foot and stomped hard. The next second, the ground began to crumble with him as the center, and Jiangxi flew into the air like a cannonball. For the sake of his own people, he rushed to the nuclear bomb with determination. And just as he was about to touch the bomb, Jiangxi reached out his hand and held it tight. With a bang he hammered the warhead of a nuclear bomb. The people who saw this scene had an incredulous look on their faces. But the next second, a loud boom instantly followed the world. As a huge mushroom cloud rose up, Jiangxi was completely lost in the flames. I don't know how long has passed. After the flames slowly died out in the ruins, the girl on the fighter, however, suddenly showed a look of horror, just because they saw a figure falling from the sky. Jiangxi raised his hand and scratched his head and thought, damn, it's time to spend money on clothes again. This day he was working out at home. The door was kicked open with a snap. The next thing you know, she's telling him to go to some non-human academy, without a word. So it started a few days ago, when Jiangxi was worried about having no clothes to wear. The commander on the warplane, however, became depressed. What's wrong with the president? How did you become so decadent? You'd better stop. The president has been fighting zombies all his life. But now she was saved by a zombie. No one can be happy in this mood, right? However, at that moment, another subordinate suddenly shouted, President, you seem to have made a mistake. Just see her. Take the zombie information and go up and explain. This guy is not a zombie. He's the latest unnatural human, who likes to wear a zombie mask. Hearing this, the girl's face was suddenly as gloomy as if she wanted to kill someone. The next day, a figure in tattered clothes came to the human city. Jiangxi hurriedly teleported to the phone booth, after he learned that the minions had been safely evacuated. That was a relief, but he didn't know. All his movements in the city were recorded by the cameras. Just as he was returning naked to his rented room, the girl on the other side then spotted him through the surveillance. At this point, it seems the Jiangxi also felt that he was being watched. And looking at the naked Jiangxi, the girl at the moment was also full of black lines. This day Jiangxi was working out as usual. But when I think of the little brothers who are still displaced, Jiangxi couldn't help but think, I don't know if they've settled in yet. And yet, just at that moment, his door was suddenly kicked open.
If you are enjoying the video, hit the like button. Please also subscribe as it helps our channel greatly.
It was the girl he had saved. And as soon as she entered, she ordered her men to start moving things around. And while Jiangxi was still confused, the girl suddenly took out a letter of admission and put it in front of him. We're from the Academy for Abnormal Humans. I now inform you that you have been accepted. From now on you are a member of our faculty. After she said that, she pointed towards Jiangxi. Several men in suits got the order and instantly came forward. But then Xiang-Shi hurriedly protested. What are you doing here? Can a zombie also go to school? And yet the girl insisted that he was just a human wearing a zombie mask. Thus poor Jiangxi was forcibly enrolled in the Academy for Abnormal Humans. At this point, the red-haired girl said, President, it's not good for us to recruit people privately like this, right? And the college dormitory is full now too. Hearing that, the president thought for a moment and then said, then let him live with me first. What kind of sparks will come out of a zombie living with a human? Looking at the girl in front of me at this moment, Jiangxi was in a daze. He saw that the woman didn't say anything for half a day. Jiangxi asked tentatively that, am I going to live here from now on? And where will I sleep? What? Is there a problem? Or do you want to sleep with me? Hearing this, Jiangxi hastily waved his hand to show that he didn't mean that, but in fact his heart is still more or less fantasizing. But then the girl turned to him and said, you can stay in the guest room next door from now on. Hearing this, Jiangxi said with some loss at once, you may have made a mistake. I'm not actually human. The girl didn't answer when she heard the words. Instead, she pounded her calves. Just when Jiangxi was looking puzzled, the girl actually removed her calf and then began to explain unhurriedly. I cut these legs off myself. It turns out that when the girl was small, because of the zombie wave that broke out in the village, not only did the girl's parents turn into zombies, but they also bit her on the calf. The girl was trying to survive. She had to choose to cut off her own legs. And she killed her parents who had turned into zombies with her own hands. And from that moment on, the girl swore, whenever she met a zombie, then she would kill every one of them. Hearing this, Jiangxi hurriedly held back the truth that he was a zombie. At this point, the girl looked at Jiangxi and asked, what did you just want to say? That? You must have misheard me. I didn't say anything. To ease the embarrassment, Jiangxi hurriedly changed the subject again and asked, what is this Institute for Abnormal Humans that you're talking about? The girl smiled and did not continue to pursue the topic just now. Instead, she began to talk about the history of the college for Jiangxi. Turns out that it's been over 1,000 years since the zombie outbreak. For the betterment of humanity, the government created the Institute for Abnormal Humans, and this academy was designed to train people to deal with zombies. Hearing this, Jiangxi couldn't help but remember what he looked like when he became a zombie. He didn't realize that he was now 1,000 years old. At this point, the girl spoke again and said, tomorrow is the time to register for the academy. If you dare to escape, I'll make sure I even find out what color your underwear are. And my name is Xiling. Tomorrow, the Xiao Xiao that you know will show you the way. Hearing this, Jiangxi was baffled. Xiao Xiao? Do I know this human? At this point, Jiangxi was confused. So much so that he didn't even hear the girl next to him greeting him. Now Xiao Xiao is anxious. She then turned to Jiangxi and began to criticize. Then, after dropping the phrase, we'll have to do the test later, and she walked into the academy in a huff. Seeing this, Jiangxi hurriedly ran all the way to catch up and asked that, do you have to take a test to get into the school? So this academy is full of students with special abilities. And if the test is not up to par, the college will not admit you. Soon they arrived at the place where the new students were tested. At that moment, hundreds of people were already gathered in the square. And these new students, taking the test, are all different from each other. Because there were so many new students in the square, Xiao Xiao had to ride on Jiangxi's head to observe. At this point, Jiangxi asked curiously, I've lifted planes in front of humans before, does that mean I don't have to take the test? And yet Xiao Xiao told him, the ability to lift planes and such is only very common here, and the teachers at the college don't even read the news. Suddenly, a crippled old man slowly approached the lectern. Hello everyone, I'm your examiner this time. You can also call me Chun, the president of the sports club. The college has been around for hundreds of years. During this period, we have produced a variety of talents. I hope that you will train as hard as your predecessors. Become a good trainee. Yet his words were not yet finished. Jiangxi in the crowd suddenly asked President, what if there is a zombie mixed in with the students? Of course, I'll take it apart and cut off the penis in public. Hearing this, Jiangxi felt a chill in his lower body. Next, it was time for the test. The first test was a speed contest, with a gunshot from the examiner. In the next second, the cadets rushed out like arrows. Just 3 seconds, they actually ran 2.5 laps. And Jiangxi, who was still on the track at the moment, was in a daze. Soon we came to the second level. This time the test item was shooting. Xiao Xiao lifted his gun in a handsome manner. Several bullets were fired instantly. In the next second, all the zombie heads on the target are hit on the ground. The zombie who saw this scene was silly. How am I supposed to shoot this? Every time he's tested, he's only just passed the passing grade. The passing line for a fast 100-meter run has to be under 8 seconds. He runs 7 minutes and 55 seconds. The passing line for the shot put throw should be over 80 meters. He'll throw exactly 80.1 meters. But despite that, Jiangxi's actions have caught the examiner's attention. Chun looks at the data in his hand and ponders for a moment. This Jiangxi is on the passing line in all subjects. But the president of the sword club says he's strong. Is this man hiding his strength? Or does he have some dark secret? Soon, the next test arrives. This time, it's the javelin throw. A red-haired teenager makes a power shot. In the next second, the javelin shot out like an arrow. It's just a split second. The javelin hits the zombie target in the lower body. Seeing the scene, Jiangxi could only feel a chill down there. Look at the javelin. At this point, 3 zombie targets have been skewered. But despite that, the javelin is still going strong. and it's finally stuck on a signpost 32 kilometers away. Soon, after the red-haired man's test, it's time for Jiang Si to take the stage. While passing by, Red Hair also looked at Jiang Si with a disdainful look on his face. However, Jiang Si didn't react much. Step forward, pick up the javelin and prepare to throw it in a low-key manner. But then Chun suddenly stopped him. This maneuver instantly attracted a lot of attention. Chun walked up and asked, "You're Jiang Si, the one President Blade introduced to me, right? She said you were strong, but you've always scored just above the passing line on every test. You're not hiding anything, are you? Everyone here is trying their best, and you're hiding it. Does that mean you're a zombie?" Hearing this, Jiang Si hastily shakes his hand to show that he's just a human. At this point Chen added, "If you can throw your javelin more than 4 kilometers, I'll give you a pass. But if you can't reach, then I'll have you court-martialed for espionage." At this point, Jiang Si is completely stupid. He's been on the run ever since he became a zombie. In order to survive, he has been exercising every day, because he doesn't want to be captured by humans and turned into a perpetual motion machine. At this point, Jiang Si thought to himself, "Throw it as far as you can." With that, he raised the javelin in his hand, with a red glow in his eyes. Next second, a powerful energy sweeps through the exam room. In just a moment, the javelin is already flying into space, and with a poof, it's gone right through the satellite. Even so, the javelin is still heading for the moon. The students in the examination room were all sent flying by Jiang Si's javelin. Looked at the ground cracked by Jiang Si's foot. Chun is on the spot with a 2-word compliment. Holy shit, is this still human power? What he doesn't realize, however, is, above the moon at this time, a hole has appeared through the entire moon. I didn't expect to accidentally put a hole in the moon. This maneuver just scared the shit out of the examiner. Xiao Xiao ran up to Jiang Si and praised him for his skill. Jiang Si was a bit embarrassed and said, "I just threw it in the air." But what they don't realize is, in a galaxy far away in outer space, a large meteorite is creeping toward Earth. And Jiang Si, the culprit, says, "I've been accepted. Is it time to go home?" Xiao Xiao sniffed and hastily recommended that he go ahead and build a regiment. As the president of the regiment, that's a lot of power. Not only can you command an army, it's also the ability to use nuclear weapons. And the government will give you a city to run. And the mayor is just the president's henchman. But Jiang Si didn't think so. After all, he's got a lot of zombie residents under his thumb. Xiao Xiao then leads him to the Biological Research Center. This is the Academy's logistics department. It's a place that specializes in researching new equipment and weapons. At that moment, Jiang Si suddenly noticed a photo. It's a picture of a family of 4. Xiao Xiao saw this and immediately introduced it. The man with the glasses is Dr. Jimming. He's the former president of the biotech club. But since his wife died, he became obsessed with doing illegal biological research with zombies and humans. He was eventually removed from the academy, and a kill order was issued. That's when a girl came up and asked, "Are you the new students?" Jiang Si sniffs and looks toward her curiously. Xiao Xiao sees this and rushes to tell him, this girl was an orphan adopted by Dr. Jimming, the current acting president. With that, she described to the girl her intentions for coming here. It turns out that Xiao Xiao wanted a piece of equipment that she could pull out her machine gun anytime, anywhere from. The girl sniffs but doesn't look the slightest bit surprised. Instead, she looks at Jiang Si. Jiang Si thought for a moment and said, "I'm not short of weapons, but after every battle his clothes are torn. So I think it would be nice to have a suit that doesn't break." Hearing these two's request, the girl was speechless. Meanwhile, on the other side of the sword house, Xiaowu, who was fighting earlier, is kneeling down to be criticized. And right in front of him was a long-legged black-stocking girl. At this point, Xiaowu spoke up. "The man who defeated me was very strong. At the time I had only just rushed up to the man, and then I blacked out and got hung up on a pole." Hearing this, the girl was instantly interested. With that, she put down the book in her hands, slowly coming up to Xiaowu's face and asking, "Tell me, what's that guy's name?" On this day, the teacher was talking about how to set up traps to catch zombies, and Jiang Si is trying to take notes at the bottom of the room. Seeing this scene, Xiao Xiao couldn't help but come up and ask, "What are you doing?" Jiang Si said without looking back, "I'm gonna go back and tell my family about this." Xiao Xiao was dumbfounded when she heard this, but at that moment the radio suddenly blared, calling all new students to the gym. Jiang Si and Xiao Xiao are confused though, but they arrived at the meeting place very quickly. Just as they were eating their ice cream and puzzling over it, Xiling shows up to tell them to settle down. This is a very important meeting, and meanwhile on the other side, only saw a tall, blue-haired beauty gazing at Jiang Si. Her name is Lanqi. She's the president of the Gen Club, and she's always been in competition with Xiling of the Sword Club. So she came, just to see how strong Jiang Si, who was introduced by Xiling, is. Looking at Jiang Si's hangdog look, Lanqi instructed her men to find a way to test him later. In the meantime, several mysterious figures suddenly appeared at the gates of the gymnasium. The visitor was the leader of all the societies, the president of the Mechanical Life Club. I saw the president walk in. Everyone bends down in honor. Xiao Xiao saw Jiang Si's mute face, hurriedly pressed his head and bowed to the grand president. At that moment, the grand president glanced at Lanqi next to him, and warned her not to mess around. And Lanqi, hearing this, could only stop. With a wave of her hand, she said she was leaving. But then the men came forward and asked, "Are we just going to let that Jiang Si go?" Lanqi laughs with a glance of her eyes. Compared to Jiang Si, it's still more important than the great president's business. because I only respect the strong. At this point, the president walked up to Xiling and patted her on the shoulder for her hard work. Seeing this, Jiang Xi couldn't help but ask, "Who is this grand president?" Xiao Xiao thought Jiang Xi was jealous. She then opened her mouth to introduce the background of the big president. Turns out he was one of the last humans in Dr. Jemming's biological research. Out of tens of thousands of test subjects, only he survived. Since Dr. Jemming has been wanted, he started the Mechanical Life Society. There hasn't been a zombie in his city in 10 years, because all the zombies that touched him turned into a pile of dust. When Jiang Xi heard this, he felt a tingle in his head. Just then, the Grand President started the meeting. It turns out that the spy we caught last time hasn't said anything yet. After hearing that he secretly pressed the button to launch the nuclear bomb, Jiang Xi is furious. "So this is the guy who nuked me." Xiao Xiao also said, "It's been Dr. Jemming who's been causing the trouble all these years. Actually, the zombies haven't had a riot in a long time." Hearing this, Jiang Xi can't help but think, the reason why the citizens went berserk. I think Dr. Jemming had something to do with it. At this point, the president spoke up again. "If anyone can get this spy to reveal Dr. Jemming's hiding place, then I'll make him vice president."
That's it for today's video. That's it for today's video. If you want the next part of this manhwa, like the video and comment, next part, for the next part. Also, subscribe and click the bell icon so you get the latest updates.